All right, people, welcome to Block Party. Packers preview show here. We're playing the Saints this upcoming weekend. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying, please subscribe, rate, review on our iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Show is sponsored, as always, by Bet Online. You can find us at Process to Perform on YouTube. Going to be doing a ton of clips, ton of analysis. Hope you enjoy it. So, like, subscribe, rate, review that. Find me on Mike Wahle 68 on X, Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. Like I said, Bet Online. They're really fantastic, and even if now that the presidential race is over, you can't bet on that. There's so much to do. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, the NHL, to UFC, they have it all. So head to BetOnline today, and don't forget to use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV. For your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here. I can't recall in pro football when there's been a 14.5 point spread, but that's what we got right now on ESPN. The Packers are hosting the Saints Sunday Night Football. Packers are in the play. I think they're mathematically, and the Saints are, I think, technically mathematically still in, but at 5-9 with all these injuries, I think they're all but out of the playoff race. And if we just to just take a snapshot of what some of these teams have to deal with. Obviously, they fired their head coach early in the season, Darren Rizzi. Special teams coordinator is going to be interim head coach. I know Darren; he's a great coach, so I know these guys will be fighting. But you just look at the names that they're missing. Olave's gone. Derek Carr is gone. And Kamara looks like he's out, and it's difficult for teams to overcome injuries at specific positions. And you could say it's probably fair to say that quarterback might be the number one. You don't have a quarterback, you don't really have a chance in this day and age in the National Football League. Now, last week they played Spencer Rattler and Jeff Hainer or Jake Hainer. They lose Alvin Kamara. These quarterbacks are playing behind a subpar offensive line. I'll show it on tape. Now the Saints for the year, and remember they're in the NFC South. It's not very good. So the Saints rank middle of the road, points per game, 22 points per game, 22.1 yards per game, 334.6. But last week, when they don't have Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara gets hurt, although he did make a ton of plays in the game. Don't have Chris Olave. Those two quarterbacks combined 14 for 30, 184 yards, one touchdown, one pick, sacked 8 times. Pressured more, but sacked 8 times and pressured like a handful more, not in an insignificant amount more. Now you look at the running game for the Saints, because again, I watched this offensive line a couple times, and you come away going, maybe the rookies got a little juice to them, but it's a tough sport. The Saints have ran the ball at a pretty good clip with Kamara, 4.4 yards per game. I mean, they're is it 4.9? They're at 12th in the league, 124 yards per game, 11th in the league. But now the burden falls almost squarely on Kendra Miller, who, for all accounts, is a pretty good running back. But the real issue for this team is up front. And you just watch it against the Washington Commanders, the pre-snap movement, the stunts. It just gives them all kinds of issues. And you're looking at multiple levels of backup quarterback that are kind of – at some point, these guys start staring at the rush, and that's what happened with the Commanders. The Packers, coming off that game where they really won kind of every which way last weekend up front, our defensive line, they should feel really, really good about this matchup. They should feel great up front. Again, 8 sacks, a number of pressures. They had 17 negative yardage plays if you include all the holding and like the false start penalties. So we're gonna watch some of this Saints tape, but I got to tell you, it even as bad as some of this looks, it's going to look different because we have a little bit of an issue here. Let's try this again. It's going to look a little bit different because they even some of the guys you're watching, you just don't know who you're going to get from week to week. Kamara getting hurt, I mean, arguably the best player for the last 5-6 years. So this is a guy they can't really be missing, and it looks like he might be up for the season. All right, let's take a peek here. I just think there's a huge opportunity when we just talk about the right side of the offensive line here. And for whatever reason, they moved Trevor Penning over there. Trevor Penning, for people who don't remember, I think it's at the Senior Bowl, and he's a small school guy, and it was 2021 or 2022, and he was like pushing guys, tackling guys, kind of like the Rivals.com poster boy, where it might not have been legal, but you had to, everyone's, oh, you said what a tough guy, what a tough guy. Well, he's in there with Cesar Ruiz, both first-round draft picks. And, for first-round draft picks, drafted in 2020, drafted in 2021, these guys really, I mean, really are struggling. And opportunities abound for the Green Bay Packers offensive line, defensive line. There's just no question about it. So let's take a peek at this tape here. You see the opportunity. I don't know what's going on with this fucking tape. All right, so we get back to it here. So again, I just think with these two first-round draft picks, there's just an opportunity here. Whether you're getting beat off the ball, so you get the holding call, even though he gets this great play downfield, it's a race. We see this so many times. These plays are as good as a sack in some ways. I just think if you're the defensive line for the Green Bay Packers, you got to look at this tape. And Washington Commanders' defensive line has always been great, obviously. But you just see a lot of guys getting beat here. You got, the quarterback's running for his life, starts looking at the rush. And so there's kind of two things here. And this is kind of what we saw when Geno Smith went out last week. The interior offensive line was struggling. So there's that part of it where you think, okay, I think I can beat this guy. And the other thing is, well, this quarterback might hold the ball for a while. And so you've got kind of the perfect opportunity here. Again, we've got two good players over there, but they're beating him, and they're beating him pretty soundly. 8 times, again, 8 sacks and many more hurries. Now, this is a play where quarterback holds the ball, steps into a throw. I'm Kamara. Problem is, they just signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but from the Chiefs just released him, but he's no Alvin Kamara. And so you see these plays, which are big time plays from a big time player. There's just he's in rare air, and they don't have that weapon anymore, and they're lost a little bit with all these guys. So in situations like this, I bring this play up. So the right guard gets beat bad right off the snap. Penning's trying to sit in and help him a little bit. I don't know if he understands that he needs to come out and the tight end was only chipping, but the quarterback's looking for a reason to fall over here. And he's got plenty of room, but he sees this and he takes a dive. That's the old Chris Everett play. Chris Everett play. You guys will know Jim Rome reference there. But that happens. That happens with backup quarterbacks, and this is certainly an opportunity for the Packers defensive line to get gain even more ground. This is the kind of stuff that drives me insane, just as a former player. That's Bobby Wagner, guys. He's a 10-time All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler, All-Decade team, and they forget to block him. Like they don't even have a guy, and one would think the tight end being on that side, one would think the right side of the line is responsible for him. One would think. But you got to be kidding me. You're not going to block the 10-time All-Pro? Now, this is the guy, Trevor Penning. This is the guy that pushed everyone late at the Senior Bowl. And I just remember watching this, and I'm like, there's just, this is a Rivals.com, like, Instagram feed thing, but, like, no, that doesn't translate very well in the NFL. And, that's a linebacker beating him. So tough sport, right? And we don't wish anybody harm or ill will, but when you kind of come out as team tough guy, and then you're giving up the bag a little bit, got to at least remember. Hey, so we got some quarterback tryouts here because the Saints are going to try a bunch of different stuff. Again, they don't have on Kamara, but they're going to run the out the wheel route here on the backside. This guy throws a dime actually for a touch here. A monster play, but expect the unexpected because they're, Rizzi is a special teams guy, so they're going to have something in their bag for that, but they're also going to have something in their bag for all these different plays that you have to create offense. Now, all the rankings that they had prior to Derek Carr going down, all these other guys getting hurt, those are kind of out the window now. I understand this is with Rattler. And just force the issue with movement here. So you're going to see that, you got 3 guys, I'm including the tight end, but really just look at right guard, right tackle. and that defensive end just kind of jumps inside pre-snap, beats the tackle badly, gets in the backfield, tackle for loss. And there's just, again, 17 plays of negative yardage in the game against the Commanders. That's nuts. He stands in there. You got to give this kid credit. I think this was the third string quarterback. He's there, a big hit, delivered a great ball to the tight end coming across. So this guy, they're not afraid, but they are going to see that rush. They are going to speed everything up. And the key to the game is, I think, on the Packers end, is force them into situations where they have to throw the football, make them get behind the sticks. So they go motion across here, and this is MVS, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, familiar face, been around the league a couple teams now. Still got a little something to him. Wide open throw. They're going to be relying on him certainly to make some plays, depending on who we have lined up for us in the secondary with a couple guys out last week. Now, if I were in charge of the Saints, I would keep it as simple as possible. Listen, guys, we have no chance to run the football against the Green Bay Packers if we're going to line up in like 12, 21, and 13 personnel, I think consistently. The problem is, if we spread out, I'll bet you most of their spread plays are either quick throws, shotgun throws. There's not, like, how much stuff can you actually run with 5 down linemen? Maybe you add a tight end or not. Out of the back, you got your inside outside zone. You got your quick pitch right here. You can't really run a quick pitch right here. You could run a counter or some sort of gap scheme, but you're really limited when you take all those people off the board. But the good news is it's easy for these guys, the offensive line, to kind of see what's going on. And I think that might trump, for me, the simplicity of what is in front of you for the offensive line standpoint, and then maybe the quarterback standpoint might trump everything else. So I might spread the Packers defense out as much as I can and just say, listen, live or die with trying to win this backside AA block. These two, if I run zone to the left, I'm just going to say my left guard, left tackle have to win. We have to be able to push. Either the tight end's going to leak through the backside backer, or we're going to have him wall off on the defensive end and let the right tackle go up. But I want to keep this light box as simple as possible. I don't know if they're going to do it, because I just don't know if they have the confidence that their guys can win one-on-one. But if I were in charge, I think this is what I would do. They had some success here. Obviously, some of this was getting back in the game. I know this last one that I'll show after this play is in their last 2 minutes when they're driving to win. But keep it simple. You got 6 blockers. They got a light box, 2 deep, and just give them a chance to have success, because I just don't know. I don't know how they. I guess I don't know how they win otherwise. More than anything else, you look at these games and you look at the personnel, and at some point it does matter. And momentum matters, and confidence matters, and it looks like they're out of the playoffs, and we already know they lost their coach. And listen, I have no doubt that Darren Rizzi's running a great ship down there, because I think he's a head coach in the National Football League. But in these circumstances, usually you get like the dead cat bounce, where you get a little bit of action, and then it's you're back to revert to the mean. So defensively, Demario Davis, still there, still playing at a high level. Cam Jordan's still there. I think he might be listed as a backup now, but of course, you've got 96. What's his name? Oh, I like him. I'm like Carl Granderson. He's a good player, and then Chase, the kid from Ohio State that was at San Francisco. I was with the Commanders and with San Francisco. He's never quite. He's more athletic than anything else. But they give up 22 points a game, but they give up 376 yards per game. That's good for 30th in the league. When you first look at this, you look at the pass rush and you go, okay, they're winning some, but they don't get to the quarterback. They had 3 sacks in the game, but you think like, man, Jaden Daniels is elusive and all that, but they didn't close the deal as much as they need to. I think what's been killing the Saints is there's just holes in the secondary, and they run a bunch of different coverages. A lot of times they'll just be running 2, and they'll some version of 2 high, and they'll let you play in front of them. They give up 242 yards a game through the air. That's 28th in the league. And at times, I think, and again, it's like, what would you do? You'll see them crowd the line of scrimmage. They'll even play a nasty look up against the tight end, and they'll try to get everybody playing on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, make guys miss, and they'll have success. They'll have a couple tackles for loss, but then somebody will miss, and they're off for 15, they're off for 20, they're off for 25. Too often, the opponent gets loose for big plays. Um, I think you're going to see a handful of plays where Demario Dawson and then Werner 20 gets into the pressure game as well. I just think that you'll see this tape. It just doesn't. Nobody jumps off the screen here as somebody you're going, this could be a real issue. Again, you got to build the defense from the D line out, just like we build your offense from the offensive line out. At least philosophically, that's how I would think about it. And I think they're good, but they're not great. The big thing is the IDO. So this is clearly a two shell. You see the corners open with their backs to the sidelines. And so you already know that the window is going to be between that up on the top of the field, that corner and the safety. So if you can just get the good throw, there's going to be that window of space. That's the clear cover two beater. You look at the splits that the Washington Commanders use. I like that because I think the Packers do the same. Now they motion out of the backfield. Of course, we've seen a ton of this from different positions with different guys, really, from the Green Bay Packers. They're going to run the running back across just to get a little eye candy for the linebackers to stop for a second, and that gets the offensive line out, and now they're able to run, which is really just a toss play, just like we saw the second play of the game for Josh Jacobs, but they get downfield and they can do some damage. So look for more of the same with the Green Bay Packers. You see how they're playing this bunch look up top, and they're playing this so they can be on different levels so they can release man. But it's really tough for that third guy. And so he pushes out and then back in, and it's just a little nod look. Make a good throw across the middle. A lot of throws across the middle against this team will be available. We go gun with the bunch. And this is, you had time. He obviously has his check down. He doesn't want to throw. He wants more. He's a young quarterback. You hope Love takes the check down here. But he has time and he tries to create more. And they're just not getting, like, you think they should get home right here. And Granderson starts running towards the line of scrimmage. He backs away and they end up throwing this ball for a touchdown. And so things like this are happening to the Saints right now because you know how everything rolls downhill. So they go motion across to a 2x2 tight end attached. Come back, and this is great eye candy again. This is the stuff the Packers have lived on. I really like this play. Cliff Kingsbury's doing a good job over here, man. So they do a guard pull, and then they run the jet sweep. And I know this isn't new, but it's new this week to me. You know what I mean? And I just like these kind of plays because if I'm the linebacker, I got to hold. You see, Demario Davis takes the bait. And it's like, where's the ball? And I mean, maybe Luke Kuechly makes that play, but God, there's not a lot of linebackers that see that enough to make it. So we go motion down. And I think this is Terry McLaurin, so they're looking to really double. And because of that, you see the guy, I don't know if you guys can see the guy at the bottom of the screen here on the numbers, bottom of the numbers on the 40. But they're really just running two here. And this is a hell of a throw by Jaden Daniels, but they're just running that into that little open space, middle of the field open, really. Look on his side with the cover two look, and that safety can't drive on it. And really, the backer is kind of out of luck here unless he really does a good job of reading eyes. Again, a lot of throws available in the middle because they are going to play deep at the safety position. So this is something I think they do well, but I also think you can read every one of these. So if you see 99, if you see all these players and how they line up normal, this is something we can identify and make adjustment calls. So Josh Myers in particular here, because he really struggles with lateral movement across his face, really has to do a good job of bringing the guard on the backside here so we don't get washed up. Even if they're bringing that guy off the edge, right? It's okay to make one guy miss. It's not okay to make two. Obviously, if you can adjust all the way out and just have a push it call or a bring it call, it'll bring all five guys and we can take care of that with lickety split. Now, anytime these two guys walk up, they're prone to come. They bail as often as they don't. but they do get a pick play here, and they're just going to run just an ET with Demario Davis, bang, bang around. And these kind of plays, persistent. Carl Granderson has turned himself into a hell of a good player because he works his ass off in the offseason. That's it. Real simple. Not a better athlete than anybody else. Just works his ass off. So he's a guy that if you allow him to make a play and there's a play to be made, he'll make it. I think the big deal here is you got to win your 1v1s because I think this is what the Saints want to do. When we want all those different, because we got Tucker Kraft, we got Sims in. I think we might be bringing Musgrave in pretty soon. But we want to play those guys because they're weapons. And the Saints will counter that and say, okay, we'll put somebody right over everybody's face and make you win one-on-ones. And especially if you're going to try to run outside right here, good luck. And they just create all kinds of car crashes. Back's got to go over the top. We got no chance. And I think this is what they're looking to do, particularly if you have a team that you want to play on the edge. How do you counter something like this? You run the inside trap. You run the backside stuff, right? You can run the gap plays. Again, I just really like those splits. I singled this play out because you have to account for Demario Davis. He's still a hell of a football player. Despite kind of the recent struggle of his team, I think this is the 14th in a row they're not going to make the playoffs. But you look at this stuff, and he's going to hit the A gap here, gets around, makes the play on the draw, and this is a guy who he's continually playing at a really high level. And then they do have players that can force the pocket. So they got a couple first round picks in here. Obviously, I think 90 was a first round pick about 3 years ago. And then we all know who Cam Jordan is, hell of a football player. They line him up inside sometimes now to free him up a little bit more, get him against lesser athletes. That was a little bit of a WWE move there. I liked it. And then we got one more here where they have 5 up. So they got to count for a 5 down look. Are they going to go inside, outside? Granderson making another play, flushing the quarterback, and they bring the safety off the edge because they were green dogging off the tight end. So I think they're going to put up a fight certainly on defense. It's just a question of what that's going to look like. For me, if there's keys to victory for this game, I think it's really 3 things. Offensively, just stay on schedule. We don't. This is one of those games just like last week. I think you can go down and move the football and score, take your checkdowns, work in the running game, spread it out. Be aggressive towards either of those quarterbacks. Crowd the box if you can early on, but we want to get in. We want to get them behind the sticks. You want to get them in situations where they're seeing the rush. I think the big thing is free rushers against young quarterbacks are not a bad idea. Free rushers against young quarterbacks are not a bad idea because, very simply, they see the rush, and when you see the rush, more often than not, you got a real problem. I'm going to give you guys some listener questions before I get out of here. You have to excuse me if I can get all this figured out. We'll get to them. All right, here we go. All right, guys, thanks as always for putting these in. I think hopefully from an interaction standpoint, this makes it a little more interesting for you. If I can get to them. Here we go. So a lot of people asked about, I was on Andy Herman's show, and we talked about Josh Myers and what that looks like next year with his contract. And, the bottom line is, no problem saying this. Josh is an Ohio State second round draft pick. He's a good athlete. He has started from the jump. I think Lindsey left and we brought him in, or maybe there's a year overlap. But he's been a starter in this National Football League for a lot of years. He's a veteran at this point. So you have enough tape on him. And there's here's the thing that nobody understands anymore, but for all the complaining that Packer fans or for all the shortcomings that Josh might have, there aren't very many good offensive linemen in the National Football League. That's why you don't see them move very often. And Josh is good enough that next year he's going to make 8 figures. He's going to make 8 figures a year. And because of that, and because the fact that they drafted Sean Ryan a couple of years ago and they drafted Jordan Morgan this year, that they drafted Jacob Monk this year, because of the options that they have, and the style of offense where it doesn't. If you have a great center, it's fantastic, but you don't need an all-pro center. Like they don't need to switch positions with the Detroit Lions in order to run this offense. It would be better if you can, but you can say that about any position. So what do you think could happen there? And I think Monk could play there. But I think just if you're looking at look, Jordan Morgan is going to start on this team at some point because he was for no other reason than he was a first round pick. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying that at all. He's not going to start at tackle, but which means there's only one other spot he can go. Like he's not a center, so he's going to have to start at guard. And because of that, it's like, well, okay, well, is he going to start over Jenkins? Well, no, Jenkins is probably going to his third Pro Bowl this year. So who's that? Well, it's Sean Ryan. So what happens to Sean Ryan? Well, Sean's proven that he's a football player. Sean's proven that he can play in the National Football League at a high level. And so it's a question of getting your five best guys on the field. Sean looks like a center. Now, if he can do all the talking and all the communication and can he snap, but he's more of all the bodies that you're looking at, he's one that you go, okay, I see him. I see him doing very well there because of what you're asked to do physically is the least demanding, quite frankly. Jacob Monk could be another option as well, but you're going to have four guys that have starting experience and one guy who's a first round pick that you're going to give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chances to. So I just see that how playing. I could be way off on that. And the other thing is like Josh Myers. Look, if Josh was sitting and asked me my business, and leaving Green Bay and all that, I would say don't leave because the grass isn't always greener. Green Bay Packers are an organization that is you just don't need to leave that organization. At the time, I didn't feel that way, and maybe Josh doesn't either. But I can't imagine the Packers are going to pay what other teams are going to pay. And at this stage of your career, if the team is going to be competitive that you're going to go, the Carolina Panthers for me, they had one of the better defenses in the league. We went to the NFC Championship the first year. Unfortunately, the quarterback got hurt the second. But you're going to a competitive team. Like that's a great situation and opportunity for Josh if that happens. So that's it. Okay. Is there any way that Elgin slides over to center? No. Left guard is harder. Left guard is a more critical position than center. Period. It's a no. How important is the strength of the center position overall? Well, I mean, listen, if you've got a great center, listen. The thing about any of this is, it would be easy for the Packers to say, okay, we want to move EJ. All right. Well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to us? Well, why do we want to move him? Well, because we have a guy that thinks he can play better guard. No. Is there something that our center's doing that our guards don't? I mean, do they pull more? I'm not sure that's true. Are there better 3 techniques or nose tackles in the league? Well, 3 techniques. Okay. Well, you start doing the math. You go, well, okay, well, let's get our better guy blocking the 3 technique. So I just don't see it happening. It could. And if it did, then they would feature him just like they featured Kelsey in Philly. Think about how many times Kelsey pulls. Well, he weighs 270 pounds, so it's like you don't need him to tent pole guys all day when he can run around them, and they can find ways to utilize EJ in the best manner possible given his skill set if they move him to center. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. As a former OL yourself, any concerns with Morgan's shoulder long term? It's not an OL. I blew out my shoulder twice and it ended my career. So yeah, you always have concerns with the shoulder. I never thought that the shoulder would be the reason that I stopped playing, but inevitably that's why I couldn't play any longer. Is my right shoulder just went to trash and that was that. So I think there's always a concern, but hopefully, I don't know anything about the actual injury or what it takes to recover. So I don't want to speak on that. Where do you see Morgan, Monk, and Jenkins all playing next year? I think that Morgan's getting every chance to play. Jenkins is going to, obviously be playing left. And then, we talk about Monk as an opportunity. I think that's great. And again, Sean Ryan, if he continues to play well, might just say, bring it on, man. Like I'm going to beat out Jordan Morgan again. And you're going to have drafted, a guy in the first round who's not going to play for 2 years or 3 years, right? That could happen. And because Monk moves like a guy that you go, oh, he could be a really good center in the National Football League. So, I don't want to, unless you're there watching every day. It's tough to crystal ball this stuff. I just know that the Packers are going to give a first round draft pick the opportunity to play as often as possible. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a fact of life. Quay is listed at 6'4", 240. Cooper's listed at 6'2", 220. Feels like Cooper plays bigger and stronger. Do you agree? Do you think Quay could learn something from Cooper's play style? More like you have it or you don't? Oh, good. Great question. And the observation is spot on, right? You've got one guy who's kind of noticeably bigger, but um, it's the anticipation of play and kind of the nose for the football that Cooper's he just has that thing, and Quay's has to learn that part of the game a little bit more. Whether it was who taught him how to study film, whether it was something with his original coach, whether he feels like more comfortable taking on blocks. Like there's so many reasons that this thing could happen. It's not just like, oh, one guy's tougher than the other. That's not the case. It's one guy has a tool set that maybe helps that part of his personality out more than the other one. But yeah, I think just instinctively, play speed wise, identifying and processing information, like I think Edgerrin Cooper's an elite level guy in that, regardless of who you're comparing him to. I think he's just a really, really good player. Best case scenario of Morgan, starts at right guard, is a all decade, all pro Hall of Fame player. I mean, it's obviously the best case, but I think I think he's gonna get a chance to play. He's sitting there. Zach Tom is not going anywhere. It'd be crazy to do anything with Zach Tom other than resign him. Same thing, Rasheed Walker. When's the last time we talked about Rasheed? Like week 5? Like nobody's talking about. He's playing well. So everybody gets a chance in the offseason. Everybody gets a hard look at the offseason from the scouts. The scouts go over and they knock on the coach's door and they go, "We'd really like to see that first round pick that we spent that first round draft grade on." And then it's like, "Oh, well, who do you want us to move?" And they go, "Well, so and so was a fourth round pick, and this is a first round. So maybe we should take a look." And then the coach has to go, "Hey, no." They have to put their foot down. I don't know what the relationship is like there, but I think it looks like it's a pretty good one. Is the run blocking issues, are they a player talent ability or a player talent slash ability issue or a mentality issue? And how hard is it now for a player to develop the skill at this point in their career? I don't know if you're talking about something specific. In the National Football League, there are schemes that are very friendly to offensive linemen. There's schemes that are not. The Packers run a very offensive friendly scheme. Having said that, sometimes when you watch tape nowadays, it's much more like, in other words, it's much more simple in the sense that they might do something that is an absolute head scratcher that if I was playing back in the day would be like, we can't even block that. What do you like? Why are we even trying this? But what they've done is they've tagged it with some sort of RPO or with the backside slant so the linebackers to hold, and that's like the foundation of the play is that. And so what the offensive line doing might not look, you know, 30-40% of the time it might look like, what the hell are they even trying to do? Because they might not have numbers, or like the backside guard has to chase somebody that's in the play side B gap, and you're going like, there's no way that's happening. But if they tag somebody on the back and they cut the defense with the split flow, there's so many different ways that they try to just account for that on paper. And listen, it's certainly worked, but we talked about this on a couple of shows. What happens in football is you can't come up with 4 quarters of new plays. And so you see Matt LaFleur every week, man. There's like a new wrinkle to what they're going to do. They had the 2 guys in the backfield, and then they motion one out. Then they orbited them around. Then they ran the old ghost stuff, and then they ran like the pistol with an offset back, and they ran the swing pass that really turns into a toss sweep. Like, and then they did a reverse off that. So they've got so much stuff that's just old. That's just old '94 ghost to us. But the way that they dress it up is so different. It's not like you can sit here and go, "Hey, we're going to come up with 72 new plays, or we're going to do, 72 or 36 new plays and 36 that look so much different window dressing than we're used to." Like, at some point, you got to put like play 1 through 40 are the same damn play, and then we're going to put these wrinkles in, and that's how we're going to attack, right? And because of that, when you get into the second, third, fourth quarter, and they're making their adjustments, and then they're like, "Oh, they're running belly." It's like we've seen belly for 20 years. We know how to run. And the Packers were clinic at double teams last week in small in light boxes. But to a man, I don't think you're looking at this team in general and going like, "Oh, yeah, these guys remove humans from the line of scrimmage better than other teams." Like I don't know if that's their MO. I don't know if that's what they're drafted for, quite frankly. So uh, that becomes an issue later on in games when you kind of run out of that stuff where the eye candy stuff is gone and you have to get down to the nitty gritty. But the other part is too when you're up 17 nothing, you're running the football. It's like the other team knows, for the most part, like you're not going to throw the ball 80% of the time if you're up 25 points. That's just not how the game goes. So there's a lot that goes into that. Certainly, a lot of people think you should be averaging like 5-6 yards a carry if you're up 30 points, but like that just means they're going to stack the box. So a lot of that's not necessarily true. It sounds good, but it's in practice, I think that's really difficult. So, anyways, 14 and a half point spread is the big deal here. 14 and a half point damn spread. So if you're a betting person, 14 and a half points, Packers have to win by 15 to get paid. I think I got a beer with Andy Herman on that, but boy, that's a tough ask, guys. That's a tough. Listen, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the show. Subscribe and review us on the Process to Perform channel. Certainly, thanks to our sponsor, Bet Online. You can hit me up, Mike168, with any other questions before the show or during. And guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Happy holidays. Talk to you soon.